There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. You may be seated. There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Good morning, good afternoon, honorable members. Let's think of our safety and make sure that we sit at our designated areas and also put our masks at all times. The slips, attendance slips are on your desks. Please fill them for us. The first item on the order paper is the statement by the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure on the implementation of the infrastructure plan. The slips recognize the Honorable the Minister. The first item on the order paper is the statement by the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure on the Honorable the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. Recognize the Honorable the Minister. Thank you very much, Minister. You may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and good afternoon to all the colleagues. And thank you for the opportunity to present the executive member statement on the infrastructure investment plan as part of the economic reconstruction and recovery plan presented by the President on the 15th of October. At the start of the sixth administration, government was reconfigured with infrastructure now for the first time as part of a government department to address the fragmentation of infrastructure delivery once and for all. The new Department of Public Works and Infrastructure was gazetted by the President in August 2019 with the infrastructure, the ICC Coordinating Commission Technical Task Team and also the IDMS and Treasury being transferred to DPWI. Since the end of 2019, we have worked closely with the Infrastructure and Investment Office in the Presidency to put together a pipeline of infrastructure projects that will completely transform the landscape of our cities, towns and rural areas. At the meeting held in Cape Town on the 8th of February with commercial banks, multilateral development institutions, numerous issues were raised with us. One of them was the need for a credible project pipeline of infrastructure projects that are ready and bankable for investment. The second one was the need for a comprehensive long-term focused infrastructure plan. And thirdly, the need to address the fragmentation of infrastructure delivery. We have listened. And DPWI together with the investment participants transform the landscape of our cities, towns and rural areas. Embark on an extensive process and develop a new methodology of planning and project preparation with the private sector. The infrastructure investment plan relates to a new methodology of project planning, preparation, and packaging infrastructure projects to ensure their bankability. What is also new is that the new methodology assesses the projects in terms of how they will advance national development goals, the National Development Plan, and the National 7 Key Priorities of the Sixth Administration, as well as the African Union Agenda 2063. We gathered infrastructure projects from all government departments, all three spheres of government, as well as state-owned entities. We put an initial 276 projects through the new methodology to see if they are bankable and if they are ready for implementation, and to also determine whether feasibility studies has been done. Leading up to the economic reconstruction and recovery plan was Cabinet's approval of South Africa's Infrastructure Investment Plan at the end of May 2020. The Infrastructure Investment Plan focused on implementation and investment in the medium, immediate, and long term, and some of the projects will run over several financial years. The plan not only speaks to new infrastructure, but also to maintenance and repairs of existing infrastructure, as well as urban management, which include the cleaning up of our cities and towns and townships. 50 projects were found to be compliant with the new methodology, and we have also created what we call 12 special projects for mass public employment opportunities. Then in July, the 50 projects plus the 12 special projects were gazetted as strategic infrastructure projects in terms of the Infrastructure Development Act. And the 62 projects are divided into 6 sectors, namely water and sanitation, energy, transport, digital infrastructure, agriculture and agro-processing, and also human settlements. Now, all 62 SIPs are at various stages of the project lifetime and will result in major job creation to help us stimulate our economy. The gazetting also enables the projects to be prioritized for implementation with the regulatory processes fast-tracked, as processes now run concurrently instead of the usual one after the other process happening. Government's role in many of these projects will be to assist with unblocking flags where the technical, financial, legal, or administrative that have hindered infrastructure delivery, such as the unlocking of bulk infrastructure. Government's role is to create the conditions conducive for the private sector to create and invest in infrastructure. Those infrastructure projects that are already in construction will see also their future plans brought forward for implementation, including some of our human settlements projects. Madam Chair, it must be noted that DPWI is not usurping the role of the owners of these projects, but we are merely pulling them all together into a credible pipeline and have a steering committee to monitor the implementation, to assist where blockages arise, and to prevent delays to ensure implementation is achieved. In terms of the funding for all of these projects, we are basically 3 funding mechanisms. The first one is the infrastructure fund, where government has committed 100 billion rand over 10 years. The second is that we are also encourage private investors to invest into this fund to make it a blended fund. The second source of funding include funding from the private sector, that include international funding institutions, multilateral development banks, development financing institutions, and commercial banks. And on the 23rd of June this year, we had a symposium where we received 340 billion rand of commitments. The other is the Green Infrastructure Bond Instrument. Is a further funding opportunity that is being explored to give us the opportunity to look at alternative funding sources coupled with the drive for green energy efficiency infrastructure solutions that meet the climate change mitigation of our country. And the third stream is from the fiscus directly. And as we know, our fiscus is not in a good space. So they essentially assist with social infrastructure, which is the responsibility of the state. Madam Chair, we have taken steps to remove the constraints that have hampered infrastructure delivery in the past. And in terms of the institutional arrangements, Cabinet approved the establishment of Infrastructure South Africa as a single entry point for all infrastructure projects, to drive the implementation of the plan. ISA is the administrative arm responsible for project preparation and packaging, funding pathways, including debt capital markets, blended financing, and funding through the fiscus, as well as assisting with blockages, monitoring, and implementation. ISA is now building capacity to prepare and package projects and to ensure oversight in the implementation of infrastructure investment plan. I also want to thank the private sector for seconding professionals to ISA to assist us with the infrastructure investment plan. ISA is also in the process of adapting infrastructure procurement framework to enable public-private partnerships and unlocking new funding mechanism for major infrastructure investment. There is, however, a need to advance these processes further. And to achieve this, last week, Tuesday and Wednesday, we hosted a project preparation roundtable with finance institutions to pitch these projects where funding is required. The session saw 27 projects being pitched to local, international commercial banks, pension funds, multilateral development banks, and development finance institutions. National Treasury has already provided 440 million rand for project preparation. In terms of the 12 special projects, Minister Tito Mboweni last week announced 12.6 billion allocated to the mass public employment programs. And in terms of the implementation, some of these gazetted projects are at various stages. There were a number of blockages that were causing delays, and we, together with the recently established Strategic Steering Committee, has already been able to deal with many of these blockages to get the projects out of the starting blocks. Now, with the gazetting, we are also looking at including the approval of credit enhancing instruments, unlocking the funding for the provision of bulk infrastructure, and speedy processing of water licenses, environmental impact studies, and also township establishment. Many of our human settlements projects have been constrained due to the funding of bulk infrastructure. So the strategic projects that are currently under construction but require funding solutions for their bulk infrastructure as they look to expedite the rollout of the integrated human settlement developments are, and I'm just going to mention a few. We've got SIP 24, Lufering in Johannesburg, a mixed-use integrated human settlement development located close by Soweto. We estimate it will create 24,000 housing opportunities, about 7,000 jobs. And then also the beneficiaries are also assisted to apply from the National Housing Finance Corporation for FLISP. Two private sector projects that are currently underway are the Mooi Kloof and Green Creek developments in Tshwane, which are two substantial integrated housing private sector projects with integrated housing solutions, which together will yield about 60,000 jobs. In KwaZulu-Natal, there's the Greater Konobia development, and the SIP 24, it's also a mixed-use integrated housing development, and we expect about 57,000 housing opportunities. Then there's Vista Park, it's another human settlement, SIP 24 in Mangaung in the Free State, and we expect it to yield about 33,000 units and 5,500 jobs. So altogether, we have gazetted 18 housing projects to the value of 120 billion and an estimated 190,000 housing opportunities. Then another one in the environment sector is SIP 19, which is phase 2 of the Makulo Crocodile River augmentation. So it's on the way now because we were able to ensure the increase in the interim borrowing limits that is being approved, and also the long-awaited environmental authorization was issued by the Department of Environment and Forestry and Fisheries on the 11th of October. Then another SIP is, of course, the Emergency Risk Mitigation Independent Power Purchase Procurement Program, where the Department of Mineral and Energies will be the lead department, and the IPP office will be the implementing agency. And we have assisted in expediting certain processes for the SIP, which is an estimated capital cost of 40 billion that will be privately funded with the ESCOM power purchase agreement. The bid submissions for the request for proposals for the 2,000 megawatt program will close on the 24th of November. In the Western Cape under SIP 19, we are busy with the Burke River fuel flow augmentation scheme, which is long outstanding, which is a much needed project to ensure water resilience for a drought-prone province. Just briefly on the infrastructure-led mass public employment programs, the first one that we are starting will be a comprehensive urban management program across all 44 districts and the 8 metropolitans. And this program includes the cleaning of parks, roads, pavements, installation of rubbish bins, street lights, maintenance of sidewalks, closing drains, closing manholes, and also providing a safe space for street trading. The program will see about 1,000 jobs created per district, and we are starting in the Vembe district municipalities, the O Tambo district municipality, and the eThekwini metro municipality. Just on the recruitment is done using the COVID-19 social grant databases coupled with the indigent grant databases of the respective municipalities. So the second special project, which with as a mass public employment component, is the Rural Bridges Program. And the plan sees that we want to build at least 400 bridges in 3 years. And the 3 provinces, Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Free State that we've prioritized. But already we've built bridges in the Eastern Cape and in KZN. Madam Speaker, let me briefly deal with corruption. But just before that, we also have opened up a skills portal on the website of the Department of Public Works, where we are encouraging unemployed, skilled people, unemployed workers, and retired persons to upload their CVs. Corruption, we must deal with the issue of corruption. To regain the confidence of our society, of South Africans, of investments, we must show that government is capable of turning the tide. As government, we are showing that we are capable of turning the situation around by holding the corrupt and delinquent visibly accountable. So we are putting measures in place to mitigate corruption in the investment plan by appointing, we have appointed a company, an independent company to do due diligence on all the processes. We are working on a more effective system to detect and prevent corruption. But also, we are working with the SIU, the Special Investigating Unit, that is helping us to set up an anti-corruption forum consisting of both the public sector and the private sector. Because it's not only the public sector that's corrupt, there's also a lot of corruption in the private sector, and we are going to work together. Madam Chair, in conclusion, going forward, I want to stress that we are going to be working feverishly behind the scenes, and we will only make announcements and further announcements and launch projects once we are satisfied that there's an active construction on the site and the activity is actually happening. No more short turnings. It must be there before we announce the project. Government is leading with the investment in infrastructure to create the crowding in effect by the private sector so that we can create more jobs and more investment. Now, these 62 projects that I'm making reference to is just the first phase. We are already looking at the second phase, and we are working together with all national departments, all three spheres of government, state-owned entities, to put the second phase together. And implementation is the key, and working together in partnership is the key. All spheres of government, the private sector, labor and communities, we must now put our shoulder to the wheel, getting things done, getting the economy growing, and create more jobs for our people. I thank you.
Thank you very much. If you saw your clock,
Yes,
I used my discretion.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable members, the first to respond to the statement by the minister is a member of the GA, Honorable Graham.
Thank you, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, call me crazy, but if vague was a person, then it would be Minister DeLille. Because following this executive statement we've heard today, we have been provided with a great many promises, but very few actual details. And while the DA welcomes the idea of an infrastructure-led economic recovery, we are deeply concerned about the vehicle, the driver, and the route. Let's look at the vehicle. We have heard today of a new entity or structure falling within the mandate of the department, Infrastructure SA or ISA. We have been advised by the Minister that this entity will be the coordinating arm of all public infrastructure in South Africa. What the Minister has failed to share with us is what type of entity we are dealing with. Aside from the fact that ISA is putting the infrastructure into public works and infrastructure, this entity is a mystery. It's not established as a statutory body. It is not yet a state-owned entity, although that is on the cards apparently. But according to the Minister, it was established by Cabinet. So what exactly is it? The organogram, including extremely high salary bands for ISA, has already been approved by the Minister of Public Service and Administration. But the budget to fund this organogram has had to be pulled from various other votes within the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. And what of the driver, or drivers in this case? It is very telling that the two core elements of the President's Economic Revival and Recovery Plan, the Infrastructure Plan and the Mass Employment Stimulus, are vested in the hands of the only non-ANC member of this cabinet. The head of ISA does not report to the Director General of Public Works and Infrastructure, despite the fact that ISA ostensibly falls within this department. The head instead reports to the Minister and or the President. Again, this is not entirely clear. But essentially, we have the entire infrastructure model vested in the hands of three people accountable only to each other, it seems. And what about the route? We've heard of financing models, government funding, private funding, blended models, and even green bonds. And the amount of funding being promised is billions and trillions. Worryingly, reference has also been made to borrowing money to fund projects. We desperately need clarity on exactly who will fund and what money on every SIPS if we are to believe the promises of transparency and accountability. We all know that vehicles need to be maintained. So too should the fixed assets of government be. The Minister's plan has said nothing about the maintenance of all this amazing infrastructure that's being built. We currently have an immovable asset register that was last comprehensively updated in 2014, with some additional verification done in 2016. A couple of years ago, DA MP Diane Kohler-Barnard entered the coordinates of some properties listed on the Public Works Register. These properties were situated somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. How does a department do maintenance on its assets when it is not entirely sure of what those are or where they are? And with the backlog that exists, it'll be some time before it gets a handle on every one of its assets. In the meantime, what will happen to the new assets and the maintenance they require? Finally, every vehicle should be comprehensively covered by insurance. In this case, that insurance is the so-called anti-corruption strategy Minister de Lille has told us about. According to the minister, the idea is to launch an anti-corruption unit such as that which was launched in the health sector last year by President Ramaphosa. This is extremely concerning. Medical Brief, reporting on a webinar hosted by the SIU in October of this year, attributed the following remarks to Advocate Matibi, SIU head. The procurement processes in the health sector is riddled with maladministration, and almost everything in the health sector has some elements of corruption. This came some 13 months after the launch of the anti-corruption unit. All the forum has done is highlight the extent of the corruption, not deal with it. We need clarification of exactly what the anti-corruption strategy is that Minister de Lille assures us is in place. So to recap, we have a department with capacity and infrastructure being usurped by an entity of indeterminate form. We have a ballooning salary bill with an undetermined source of income. We have the head of the organization reporting directly to the minister and or the president, and a minister only answerable to the president. We have details of 62 projects to be implemented, but the sources of funding remains unclear. And we have promises of more units to fight corruption, while the existing ones continue to drown under the endless cases of corruption perpetuated by this government. Minister de Lille is inviting us to join her on this journey. And while the DA would love nothing more than to get on board, our fear is that this is less of a magical mystery tour and rather more like Speed, where we're on a bus with a bomb, hurtling down the highway towards a gigantic precipice. And given what we've heard today, I'm not sure that there's anybody available to save us. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Graham. The next speaker is the Honorable Siwisa from the EFF.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Speaker, the idea to pin the hopes of the entire nation on a state-led infrastructure to revive the economy when the state itself has no capacity is misguided, if not utterly foolish. The minister's statement is nothing short of rhetoric, because the reality is that to use infrastructure to revive this economy will require a state that has capacity at all levels, both administrative and technical, something which currently does not exist in government. Since 1994, the little technical and maintenance capacity that was there was destroyed, and today, everything starting with the most basic things such as drawing of plans, government rely on third-party entities who have collude, inflate prices, and half the time don't ever bother to do the work but still get paid. There is not even capacity to enforce a contract to ensure that that was paid for its delivery. The government cannot build and maintain schools, cannot build and maintain hospitals and clinics, cannot build and maintain roads, water infrastructure, sanitation, and many other basic infrastructures. While this is the state of affairs within the state as far as infrastructure planning, execution, and maintenance are concerned, there are more concerning fundamental issues where the government planned based on Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa misguided faith in the private sector. Mr. Ramaphosa announced that the government will allocate 100 billion rands to the infrastructure with the hope that this will unlock further trillion rands investment from the private sector. GER, ASGISA, and NDP said the same, and none of these achieved their intended outcomes. Even the National Infrastructure Maintenance Strategy failed because the Department of Public Works, that is the custodian of all state properties, does not have its capacity but outsource everything while engineers employed in the department are reduced to administrators and secretaries. To want to do the same thing again with the so-called economic reconstruction and recovery plan and what the minister just presented and expect different outcome is a true definition of insanity, made worse by corruption and political and technical incompetence of the part of Mr. Ramaphosa and his collective in the cabinet. The only way infrastructure spent by a government anywhere in the world has led to economic growth, created jobs, and play a meaningful role to reduce inequalities was when the state led and controlled the plan execution and had an influence in the majority of up and downstream business opportunities. This was the case with the World Reconstruction and Development in 1994 after the World War II. It is how China built its economic foundation to become the fastest growing economy in the world. And it is also the case here in South Africa to when the colonial apartheid was able to develop some form of sustainable economic growth over a longer period of time. To achieve this, we must have a state-owned infrastructure capacity to deal with the majority of infrastructure that is old and collapsing because of their lifespan was reduced by poor maintenance. We must establish a state-owned housing construction company, state-owned roads construction company, and immediately abolish tenders for construction and maintenance of government infrastructure. We must build state internal capacity to deal with large-scale projects, particularly as it relates to the life cycle of infrastructure operation and maintenance. This means planning of infrastructures as buildings, roads, vehicles, hospitals, equipment, border scanners, water purifications and dams, electricity power plants and transmission lines, telecommunication towers and other infrastructures must include a clear plan of maintenance as the basis of determining the project feasibility. A clear infrastructure plan should also include details such as a number of jobs per project, duration of the jobs, local material that will be used in the project, details of the beneficiaries of up and downstream. Lastly, each year, government, including municipalities and SOEs, must be able to consolidate the report on infrastructure maintenance through the Office of the President to Parliament. Unless we do these basic things, we will have a whole president being paraded opening some way mega projects owned by his white donors, like it happened in Pretoria, and their projects do not even meet basic BEE targets. To them, BEE is the afterthought, and those ones in the ruling party are happy to receive shares of projects they know nothing about.
Wisa, your time has expired. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable Numalo from the IFP.
Thank you very much, Chair, Honorable Minister, and Honorable Members. Good afternoon. Honorable Chair, our nation is experiencing the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, particularly on our economy. I think most of us will agree to that. Because, Chair, as we sit here today, much uncertainty surrounds how effective our recovery plans will be as the second waves, as we hear on media, of the virus sweep across the globe and other countries with strict lockdown protocols. Honorable Chair, our economy was already struggling way before the onset of the pandemic, which further compromised us as a country. The implementation of the infrastructure investment plan is more urgent in the wake of the pandemic. The IFP, however, acknowledges the work that the department undertook to lay the foundation for this critical plan. The main concern that I have, Honorable Chair, especially considering the uncertainty surrounding where we will be as a nation health-wise in the coming months, is whether also will targets be met affecting the service delivery of the projects due to the pandemic. Further, what mitigation factors have been considered to manage such uncertainty, especially considering the blow the construction industry took because of COVID-19. It is also necessary, Chair, to prioritize the implementation of projects that will put food on the tables of our people by creating jobs. Labor-intensive projects like road buildings and housing development must be at the forefront of these plans. Further, Honorable Chair, in the maintenance and the repair of existing infrastructure, the IFP urges the department not to neglect communities outside our metros. Our provinces deserve dignity, affirming development, employment opportunities, and other economic improvement as much as those in large metros. Chair, the IFP agrees that part of government's role is to create a conducive condition for private sector investment. However, the advent of the state capture and the corruption demands a high level of diligence to protect South Africans and for our country to remain credible in the international community. The IFE wishes to reiterate the importance of transparency and the accountability when it comes to the execution of all these projects. Parliament must remain appraised of personnel changes, fiscal responsibility, as well as frequent and honest updates on the monitoring and evaluation of these particular projects. Further, Chair, because of the multiple sources of finance and the culture of corruption we have seen in government spending, clear disciplinary procedures and sanctions must be created and be executed without prejudice. Lastly, the Honorable Chair, the IP recognizes that this undertaking is a mammoth one upon whose success the recovery and the development of our country hinges on. Cooperative government is critical to the successful implementation of the elected program. I trust that all these concerned government departments will come to the table with their best and their brightest. This collaboration includes the relationship with our SOEs, many of which remain ineffective and plagued by corruption. In all its tasks, the IFP trusts that the future of the South African and the South African people will be at the fore. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members.
Thank you. Msonisha van Staden, FF Plus.
Geagte voorsitter, tydens verlede jaar se debat oor die totstandkoming van superstede het die VF+ dit duidelik gestel dat die betrokke plan niks anders is as 'n resep vir rampspoed, nie aangesien die huidige stede en dorpe nie eens in stand gehou kan word nie. Minister De Lille het op daardie tydstip aangekondig dat die privaat sektor betrokke moet raak by die bou en instandhouding van infrastruktuur vir 'n tydperk van 20 jaar waarin dit weer aan die staat oorgedra moet word. President Ramaphosa homself het op daardie stadium erken dat die huidige situasie in stede nie volhoubaar is nie en dat daar 'n agterstand met die bou van skole, klinieke en hospitale was. Minister De Lille het in hierdie einste huis gepraat van implementering. Die vraag wat ons mekaar vandag moet vra, is wat het sedert Augustus 2019 verander? Die antwoord is baie duidelik, eintlik niks.
The people in ICT, Honorable Van Staden is in the house, and I think the camera should be on him, not me. Honorable Sylvia, ANC, close your mic, please. Continue, Honorable Van Staden. Sorry for that.
Thank you, Chairperson. En niks het ook sedert 1994 verander nie. Ons kragsentrales is oud en meestal buite werking. Ons rioolwerk het in 2017 nagenoeg 50,000 liter rou riool in ons riviere gestort elke sekonde van die dag. Ons padnetwerke is oud en val uitmekaar. Ons brûe is nie meer veilig nie en kort dringend aandag. Ons spoorlyne is opgeroes, gevandaliseer of gesteel en ons stasies bestaan nie meer nie. Ons het tekort aan damme en die wat ons het word besoedel. Ons het tekort aan polisiestasies, hospitale, klinieke en skole, asook die instandhouding by sommiges ontbreek. Ons geboue en ander bates is in so 'n toestand dat dit miljarde gaan kos om te herstel. En ons infrastruktuurtoelaas wat munisipaliteite ontvang van tesorie gebruik hulle nie. En daarom is daar dis 'n agterstand in infrastruktuur. Another question is, what is Infrastructure South Africa different from the other 7 entities within the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure? The functions. No, and none of these entities, no one could do the functions that was prescribed by them to do in the first place. Every time this department come up with a new plan to solve problems, it costs millions of rands, and then nothing happened, but we are stuck with an entity that is not functioning, and it costs money to pay people who's employed by these entities. We are wasting time, and we are wasting money. This infrastructure investment plan is nothing more different from what the EPWP was supposed to do over the years. So we spent 20 million rand to establish this entity, Infrastructure South Africa. This plan is also no different, in our view, from the RDP program that was gazetted by former President Nelson Mandela on the 23rd of November 1994. It is just been an updated program. A commitment by the private sector for 340 billion rand is not money in the bank. Die president vra die private sektor om toe te tree tot projekte om werk te skep, maar met die regering as projekbestuurder. Niemand sal daarby inkoop nie. Maak eerder die private sektor die projekbestuurder om sukses te behaal. Die VF+ is baie duidelik dat die staat nie kan werk skep nie om die rede die staat nie geld het nie en die belastingbetaler het ook nie meer geld om te gee nie. Wat ons bekommerd maak is dat die minister gesê dat sisteme in plek gestel sal word om korrupsie af te weer. Dus is die staatspensioen geld wat gebruik gaan word in hierdie projek nie veilig nie en wil ek vir my kollegas in die ANC sê, pas op, jou swaar verdiende pensioengeld is nie veilig nie en jou eie party en jou eie regering gaan dit in sy eie sak trek. Dus vir die volgende 25 jaar is hierdie 'n nuwe plan op die tafel net om weer te ervaar dat niks met hierdie plan gaan gebeur nie. Mense gaan hoë salarisse verdien en hulle gaan absoluut niks doen nie. Nog 'n entiteit kom van die grond af, nog 'n deur vir korrupsie word opgemaak, vir staatspensioene gaan verdwyn in 'n bodemlose put. If there is a solution to the infrastructure problem in this country, and that is to stop affirmative action and transformation, stop redistribution, stop corruption, stop government spending on high salaries, stop high taxes and the misuse of it, and stop appropriation without compensation. If you stop with all these policies, then you will attract international as well as private investors to South Africa. And then the economy will grow and there will be enough money to repair and build South Africa. It is one thing to gazette, but it is another. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Thring, ACGP.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. In the view of the African Christian Democratic Party, there can be no denying that an infrastructure plan, as well as an investment one, is needed in South Africa. The 9 wasted years of state capture that has cost the nation hundreds of billions of rands through fraud, corruption, rampant theft has not abated, evidenced by the Auditor General's report on the state of our municipalities and the recent reports on corrupt PPE deals across government departments. Corruption of this nature hurts the poor amongst us. It robs them of their dignity, ensnares them in a cycle of poverty, not just because of our apartheid past, which was reprehensible, but now because of the politically connected individuals who are allowed to plunder public resources with impunity. These are the accused, number one, who ought to be standing in the dock. With that being said, South Africa is plagued with geospatial infrastructural inequalities, characterized by a lack of social infrastructure in urban and rural communities as a result of decades of underinvestment. Additionally, we have also seen decades of little to no investment in key sectors and a lack of sustained development in the energy, telecommunications, rail, roads, water, and waste management, amongst others. The South African infrastructure problem statement can be defined as one that is bureaucratic, having a silo mentality between departments, hence resulting in a lack of integration between key sectors. Undoubtedly, there is a need to address the fragmentation of infrastructure delivery. The question is this infrastructure investment plan the panacea to the infrastructure problems we face as a nation? It is the view of the ACDP that in order for this infrastructure investment plan to work, the relevant oversight committees need to see the MOAs between the necessary departments. We also need to be able to interrogate the funding instruments to be utilized, including the blended funding to which the government has committed some 100 billion over the next 10 years, so as to ascertain how much is committed from the private sector and how much from government. Additionally, the 62 catalytic projects need further unpacking, particularly in how these projects are to be funded. This is critical for our parliamentary committees to play their oversight role of monitoring funding, expenditure, and the expected outcomes of projects. The ACDP agrees with the former President Thabo Mbeki in his critical analysis of the infrastructure investment plan, that the plan is lacking in detail. And the ACDP submits that unless detail is given on the rollout of a robust pipeline of projects, this plan will just remain a pipe dream. I thank you.
Thank you. Mhlonishwa General Holomiso, UGM.
Chairperson, Honorable Minister, and honorable members. Honorable Minister, you recently said at a round table about infrastructure development that South Africa needs to have a plan and we need to stick to it. These are two extremely critical statements. Yes, we keep hearing about the plans, but does government ever stick to it? I guess time will tell. When the new South Africa arrived, the formerly disadvantaged communities had a legitimate expectation of a tangible improvement in the quality of their daily lives. The infrastructure of those who live in the then homelands and townships was never fully integrated and or upgraded. And now even government buildings have fallen into serious disrepair and disuse. Honorable Minister, infrastructure development is not a rocket science. And although you are now sitting with the problem, the UDM finds it extremely maddening that infrastructure has been the stepchild of government priorities. The taxpayer is now going to pay a dear price for 26 years of infrastructure neglect and disrepair, all of which could have been avoided if the comrades in corruption had not been so hell-bent on lining their own and their party's pockets. That said, the UDM welcomes the announcement made, but we warn that a lot of work still must be done to eradicate the backlogs and imbalances of the past. UDM, however, firmly believes that new infrastructure developments should be brought closer to the people, especially the poor. Elite projects like the new city, although not inherently bad, are off the mark right now. Although it sounds a dream of technology and green living, one wonders who its resident will be. The bread and butter project, if you will, should be repairing and building schools and hospitals. Honorable Minister, I would like to add that you undertake an audit of incomplete projects, such as the water projects that were supposed to supply water villages in the King Sabata Dalingebo, which have been at standstill for 5 years because of misappropriation of funds. Also in the Eastern Cape, the R61 between Mthatha and Ngcobo, small as the road was passable. Now excavated, it has been a death trap for 4 years now. The road between Mthatha and Coffee Bay and Hole in the Wall is also experiencing the same. Some focus also must be placed on the taxpayers, not only in the metros, but in the towns like Krugersdorp, in the Northwest, and Paris in the Free State, where the road is disintegrated.
Ngangabe sakho siphelile Mhlonishwa.
Ndiyabulela mama.
Ngiyaxolisa.
Kade la
Thank you.
masela emali.
Ungasachubeki. Is ATM in the platform by any chance? I pass. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Ikhona.
Ikhona. Okay, ngiyabonga Mama Mahawu, qhubeka ma.
Enkosi kakhulu mphathi nkqubo. Mandibulise okokuqala kuminister nakumalungu endlu. Okokuqala si-African Transformation Movement. Besivuyela silangazelela le infrastructure investment plan. Kodwa sinemibuzo esizibuza yona into kuba le department izawuqhuba le infrastructure investment plan inayo na i-capacity, because it starts there with the capacity which is going to assist in the revival of the economy of this country. Our answer was no, there is no capacity in the department, because lona elisebe lixakwe kuqala zezalo ii-projects ekusuppose bayazigqibezela. Okwesibini, ujonga into yokuba i-infrastructure yeli lizwe igcwele kuwo onke amasebe. If ujonga u-health, ufumanisa uba uhealth akafowukhasi kwi-core function yakhe, yile infrastructure bekusuppose iya kwa-public works. Kodwa ingaba icapacity ikhona? No. U-education ubhizi wakhe izikolo ngento bekusuppose yenziwa ngu-public works. Kodwa ke ingxaki ekhona yi-capacity within the Department of Public Works, which is not there. Coming to again, the corruption within the department itself, looking at huge amounts ze-budget ezawusetyenziswa. Ngaba i-clean nale department in terms of dealing ne-revival of the economy of this country? No. I-corruption kwela sebe ayinganganto for ukuqhuba eli lizwe ilise phambili. Kuloko sisithi the-African Transformation Movement makhe kubuyelwe kwi-drawing board kuyoklinwa kuqala eli sebe, yi-Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, lilungele ukurola out i-infrastructure and investment plan yeli lizwe. Kubanjwe abantu aba-implicata ku-corruption. Ukuba ngabana ayikenziwa loo nto, masilibale ngento yokuba i-economy yeli lizwe xa siyibeke kwizandla zika-Public Works iyawuqhuba ibheke phambili. Kule nto ibigqitha uthethwa zizithethe zangaphambili, sixakene ngoku ne-maintenance kwii-buildings ezikhona zika-Public Works ayikho. Izawuthini ke ngoku lo mngeni umtsha wokuqinisekisa into yokuba ijongene ne-infrastructure yeli lizwe iphela? Ngenene ngenene sisentsomini apha. Enkosi, siyabulela.
Siyabulela, Mhlonishwa. Honorable Sheikh Imam NFP.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Honorable House Chair, let me start off by saying, if you can see miles away something that's going to fail, this is one opportunity to look at something that's going to fail before it even starts. Now, let me tell you why this project cannot be a success. Actually, all it is now a pipe dream. We are asking people to dream for years and years and years. There's no realistic approach as far as ensuring that we can deliver on these things. Let me say, we don't have a plan. We do not have the capacity. We do not have the money. And I'm not sure where the minister is talking about getting all this money from. Now, let me start off by saying, she also talks about in 3 months to 18 months, some of these projects will be completed, but within 3 months, they will commence. How, when, who? Are we going to give them to people we know, like it happened in the Bike Bridge project? Is that what we are going to do? Can you tell us what processes? Let me give you a good example. 1.8 billion rand has been underspent in provincial departments alone in the last financial year. So you do not have the necessary capacity there. The minister believes we're going to deliver. Now let me talk about the jobs. We speak about wanting to reduce the compensation to employees. We are talking about creating 363,000 more jobs, but we are speaking about reducing the compensation to employees. We are talking on the one hand, the minister says he wants to reduce the debt. The minister is talking about some of the plans she has is to go and borrow money. Borrow from where and pay who? All the minister is talking about doing is running this country into a fiscal cliff, into bankruptcy. Clearly, this is not going to be. People are sick and tired of dreams and fantasies. They want us to be realistic based on what we can actually achieve to make a difference for the people. Now, let me tell you, Minister, what you are actually doing. You've done exactly the same thing from the ID. When you went to the DA, you promised them the world in the Western Cape, in the city of Cape Town. But what did you do? Blickies, Dorp and things are some of the examples. Okay, look at what you've done in White Bridge. Look at how you employed people of your own. Are you telling me we can have confidence that you can turn this project around and make it a success? Clearly, no, you don't have what it takes. Now you're singing the song of the African National Congress that you're going to implement these things and create millions of jobs. How? When? Have you ever sat down and been realistic? Can you actually achieve these things in the short space of time that you are talking about? Clearly, you are not in the position to be able to. Let me give you a good example. Have you ever gone and seen the water and sanitation projects in the country? How they stand because the contractors don't even have the necessary resources to be able to get the material. Have you put a plan together with trade and industry? Let's create an industry. Let's supply them the goods. You have not done anything of that, but you're coming out here and saying you're going to achieve this. You're going to create millions of jobs. You're going to turn these through infrastructure. We've been battling year in and year out in this country where we don't have the capacity. People are underspending. They are not delivering on these things. The very same. You're not.
Ma'am, thank you very much. Your time has expired.
20 people. How is this price to benefit. Thank you.
Ma'am, your time has expired. Is the AIC in the platform? I don't have a name. None. The PAC? Thank you. The Honorable Hendricks Al-Jama?
Good afternoon, Honorable House Chair. Honorable House Chair, the 62 projects hatched in the office of the presidency, and I was hoping they would be here and stand up so we can see them, and announced today is the silver bullet South Africa has been waiting for all these years. Al-Jama wants to congratulate Minister Dalal for the way she has put it together, and we want to assure her of our support. The pipeline, Honorable House Chair, of infrastructure projects will transform the landscape of Mitchell's Plain, Kaelitsa, Bonteheuwel, Delft, Eldorado Park, Lenasia, Woodstock, District 6, Walvis State, the Bullcap, and the landscape of many of our towns, cities, and rural areas. This is a long-term focused infrastructure plan and will, for the first time in the history of the country, put to the nation an infrastructure plan that is not fragmented and not part of an apartheid spatial plan that colonials still love today. It was a big mistake, however, on the part of the Defence Force and the Minister not to build any bridges in the Western Cape. The Western Cape is the province that actually needs a lot of bridges because we need to integrate more and more communities. I know you know what I'm trying to say, Honorable House Chair. Al-Jama is not convinced that the web of laws steeped in racism holding up transformation has not been removed, and Parliament must certainly consider giving the presidency more executive powers to do so. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair, and everything of the best for the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Hendricks. The Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure, the Honorable Dobongwana, ANC.
Honorable House Chair, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable members, and fellow South Africans, good afternoon. Molweni. One of our forebears of the liberation struggle, O.R. Tambo, once said, "It is our responsibility to break down barriers of divisions and create a country where there will be neither whites nor blacks, just South Africans, free and united in diversity." I feel that this quote is befitting for the Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure, which has a responsibility to conduct oversight over a department that is the catalyst for the socio-economic development and a significant driver for the creation of inclusive economy and job creation. Our responsibility as the ruling party that is governing this country is to break down socio-economic divisions of the past and advance inclusive economy and job creation. The ANC, Honorable Chairperson, supports the statement that was presented by the Minister of the Infrastructure Investment Plan. Honorable members, COVID-19 pandemic has worsened the socio-economic challenges across the world, and our country is also affected by that. Our country was not saved on that. And these challenges, the challenges that we had as the country of poverty, inequalities, and unemployment were more exposed and worsened during these trying times of our lives. His Excellency President Ramaphosa presented in this plenary the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. This plan was aimed at helping the economy recover from the ravages of the coronavirus and a lockdown that was implemented to curb its spread. The ANC ANC is not dreaming. Our economy has to recover. And as such, President presented a plan. And today the minister is presenting the plan that will involve infrastructure. One of the key areas of intervention is the State Infrastructure Fund that will provide 100 billion in finance, a measure the government hopes will unlock a further R1 trillion investment. Those are not dreams. It's the information that is there for all to see. The Department of Public Works and Infrastructure is one of the main drivers of economic reconstruction and recovery plan through the investment in infrastructure. Honorable members, the ruling party proposed a recovery strategy which has its first pillar, a massive infrastructure-led recovery, which will include public-private partnerships. We are not dreaming. We right now, President launched a program in Tshwane which involves public-private partnership. It's not a dream, it is happening. This included a model of blended funding for the infrastructure projects and strengthening of the district developmental, which focus on the local government level. The statement of the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure focuses on the infrastructure investment plan. This is the implementation plan of the economic recovery and reconstruction. The new branch that the Department of Public Works has added, which is Infrastructure South Africa, that is ISA, and is headed by Dr. Ramakgopa, will drive a major part of the infrastructure development, which we will be recovering our economy through it. The role of the minister, ISA, and the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Commission, PICC, will assist in the implementation of the infrastructure investment plan. The Portfolio Committee understands that the infrastructure investment plan will make use of the blended funding with both private and public contributions to get the project implemented. But this requires more transparency. Without a multi-level system of monitoring, checking, and oversight, we may not achieve getting more growth, employment, and empowerment of the most vulnerable in our country. The government's plan to deal with economic downturn and negative effects of COVID-19 emphasizes that it is better to provide people with skills and get them employed in infrastructure projects than merely handing out grants. Grants must be continued, but people must be assisted to get jobs so that they can learn skills that will make them independent and self-sufficient. The IDT that signs as service level agreements with the non-state sector of the EPWP should be at the center of the massive employment creation that forms part of the infrastructure investment plan. If we want to succeed at creating employment for the poorest of the poor, there are serious governance problems in the IDT that the committee has instructed the minister and her team to sort out. We will keep a check on this, and we trust that the minister and the department will sort what we have highlighted as the committee out. We note the three funding streams of the infrastructure investment plan that the government proposes to fund the 44 district municipality and the 8 metros. This is through its district DDM that the Department of Public Works announced it would focus on in its annual performance plan for this year. Madam Speaker and Chairperson, we are saying as the committee and the ANC, as much as EPWP is used, but we must also provide training and skills to empower all those that will be participating in it. If the poorest of the poor is given work, we must applaud it, but it cannot be that they are given this task without getting skills with which they can graduate into higher levels of employment. It cannot be the people that who are poor continue to do this task without a chance of being empowered. The Portfolio Committee will do oversight over whether and how the EPWP branch in the department is regulating the beneficiaries of approximately 1,000 jobs created through each district and metropolitan municipality. And the minister was saying now, all that they are saying will be done. It's not a pipe dream. We will monitor that as the committee. Honorable Chairperson, we are also, as the government party, responsible for the transformation of all parts of our society and economy. And as such, when the department goes to public-private partnership with these large successful construction companies, those contracts must include empowering Black women and young people in construction, emerging Black-owned engineering and architects and project management companies. We're referring especially in the built environment, the CBE. We also note government getting private infrastructure companies to second their specialists in the department to help the Infrastructure South Africa with the assessment of projects to unlock funding and implementation. But even in this, when the private company second their contracts in the department, we want that to transparent way so that no collusion and corruption takes place in the department. Also, we are saying that when the department partners with the private sector, compliance with the PFMA is very crucial. If it says that a company which is compliant with the BEE, then that must happen. So we're saying that compliance with the PFMA is crucial and it must always be involved at all material times. We cannot keep quiet if we see any corrupt activities taking place as the committee and the ANC. We will be the first to shout that there is corruption in that. Honorable Chairperson, the ANC supports the statements of the minister on the infrastructure investment plan as the tool to the economic reconstruction and recovery plan. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Tobongwani. The Minister, Dilim, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, we have been giving regular reports no more than 3 times to the Portfolio Committee about the plan. But some people want to hear, but they don't want to listen. We are committed in terms of accountability as expressed by the Honourable Member from the IFP to account to Parliament, to account to the people of this country, to account to Cabinet. And we have committed to that. We will be doing once a month a public statement just about progress that we are achieving. But certainly, if any member can point out anything that we are doing illegal, we are operating in terms of the Infrastructure Development Act of 2014. Please just go and read the Act and look at Schedule 2 of the Act, and hopefully you will understand that whatever we have done is within the framework of the law. And I've responded to this before already. Somebody spoke here about insanity. Yes, I wrote a piece this weekend about the definition by Einstein of what is insanity. Insanity is when a person repeats the same things over and over again and hoping to get up to a different result. I'm sure what Einstein meant at the time was that people are saying the same things over and over again, rehashing the same thing. They are denying themselves the opportunity to engage with the subject so that they can learn from the mistakes of the past. This country will be and must be transformed, and for that, For those of us who fought in the struggle for liberation, we make no apology. The whole of this country. And transformation will be to the benefit of all the people in South Africa, not like it used to be only for a few. And we will continue with transformation. To those members that have made all the constructive input, the chairperson of the portfolio committee, the IFP, all of you, I want to say thank you for your positive inputs. We are going to walk this together. We must rebuild and reconstruct our economy after COVID-19, but even before that. And if people have ideas of how we can do it, come with your ideas, enhance the plans of government so that we can all work together. Yes, there are problems. The honorable member from the Freedom Front. Yes, there are problems, but we need to find the solutions. We can't just repeat the problems over and over again. And I've heard some good inputs from the honorable member of the Freedom Front. And we will all work together to make this plan work. Honorable Tring, yes, one of the reasons for the formation of ISA is to have a single entry point where we just on a database, we record all the infrastructure projects wherever they are in the country. Because at any point in time, you can have 50, 60 tenders out there, but the one sphere of government is not talking to the other so that we can put our resources together. Yes, Honorable Olamisa, we must tackle the integration of our towns and cities. We must deal with the apartheid spatial development framework and the apartheid spatial things that we still see in our city. It's an indictment that we've not been able to integrate our cities. But then some parties resist integration because they want to keep the cities the way they used to be almost 300 years ago. We will integrate the cities. And we will make sure that we deal with apartheid spatial planning. That is why we've started to have a plan for infrastructure up to 2045 to deal with the backlog of infrastructure. We will geospace those projects all over the country for everybody to be seen. Honorable Holomisa, the audit of incomplete projects, we are busy with that. We already have we've done quite a bit. We are just waiting for input from the various provinces and the municipalities so that we can consolidate a register of all incomplete projects. Honorable Sheikh Imam, I don't know why he's so angry with himself. He is so angry because he's running away from his disciplinary hearing of the NFP. Don't come and take it out on me now. He's just angry. No, you lost in the
Thank
court.
you very
You
much,
lost in the
Honorable
court.
Member.
Go
The
away.
Honorable Minister, unfortunately,
Yeah.
I don't have time.
Then also the last point, Chairperson, of the Honorable Chairperson, that I want to make, in terms of public-private partnerships, we're also looking at a new methodology of build, operate, and transfer.
Thank you.
But we are going to work hard, Honorable Chairperson, to make this plan a success.
Chair, it would be nice if we could all be allowed to finish our speeches at some point in time. Make our concluding remarks.
Honorable Member, take your rules and check on my discretion, especially when it comes to members of the executive and the statements. Thank you.
But it's our parliament. Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, we continue. Honorable members, the next item on the order paper is a decision of question on the draft resolution in the name of Mr. Matthias. I wish to remind you that this draft resolution was debated in a mini plenary on Thursday, the 5th November, but that a decision thereon can only be taken in the full plenary, and that is where we are. This is also the case for the other decisions of question, which are orders 1 to 4. Honorable members, I now put the motion. Are there any objections on the resolution as I have referred to? The ANC standing?
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. An amendment to the resolution of Honorable Mataise of the
Honorable Member, firstly, I asked if there are objections. You have to say whether you object and come with whatever you want to come with.
We are objecting, Honorable Chairperson.
Yes, and
an amendment.
or you would like to make,
an amendment
as
yes.
the ANC?
As the ANC, yes.
Okay.
May I
Thank you very
continue?
much. May I please ask if the table have got a signed copy of your amendment? You have. Okay.
House Chair.
Yes, Honorable Shibambu.
No,
I'm
just to say, can you please clarify the process of which motions do we vote on first? Do we vote the proposed amendment first, or do we vote in the original motion and then come back to the amended motions? Let's clarify that process so that all of us are on par in terms of how we proceed now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shibambu. Honorable Shibambu, if there is an objection according to Rule 121, and there is an amendment, we allow the amendment to be read, and thereafter we will have to take a decision on the amendment. If there is more than one amendment from another party, we will also allow that amendment to be made, and the last amendment to be made will be put first for the question. That is what the rules are saying. And whichever amendment gets more votes, if there is going to be a voting, that will be the standing amendment. Honorable Member, I'm not going to I think I've given you the summary of what Rule 121 is saying. And can we continue as such? The motion on the table is the motion of the EFF by the Honorable Matthias. The ANC has objected and wished to make an amendment, and I'm going to allow that to continue. Thank you. Honorable Acting Chief Whip, the ANC.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The amendment to the Economic Freedom Front motion is actually being put forward in the name of the
On a point of order, there's no on order.
I'm listening, Mr. Honorable Majake, take your seat. Yes, Honorable Shibambu.
There's no motion of Economic Freedom Front, and there's no organization called Economic Freedom Front in Parliament. It's the motion of the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Okay. Thank you for the correction. I accept. Continue, Honorable Majake.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. Again, this motion, an amendment will actually be put forward in the name of the Chief Whip of the majority to be delivered by Honorable Judith Shabalala of the African National Congress on verse 1.
Oh, Honorable Shabalala, it's your time.
Thank you so much, House Chairperson. The amendment of the ANC, it reads as follows: that the House omits all the words after that the House, and to substitute with the following: 1. Acknowledges legislative and policy progress made in terms of improving and working relations between the farmers, farm workers, and farm dwellers since the advent of democracy.
Honorable wait. Honorable Mashiko. Honorable Mashego, can the Honorable Mashego, please, I'm going to order you out of this platform if you continue to speak with your mic on. That's a warning. Continue, Honorable Shabalala.
Thank you so much, House Chairperson, and I'll start from the beginning. The amendment reads as follows, that the House omits all the words after that the House and to substitute with the following. 1. Acknowledges legislative and policy progress made in terms of improving the living and working relations between the farmers, farm workers, and farm dwellers since the advent of democracy in 1994, such as the Labor Relations Act, Extension of Security Tenure Act, Employment Insurance Act, Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Disease Act, and Occupational Health and Safety Act. Number 2, notes that despite progress made since 1994 towards the overall improvement of the working and living conditions of the farming community, farm workers, farm dwellers, and farmers are faced with persistent challenges of crime, violence, gross violation of human rights, lack of adequate housing facilities, lack of access to clean running water. 3, further notes the individual and collective efforts of farm workers, farm dwellers, and farmers as important contributors and key role players in our economy, as well as the role played by the farming sector and various social partners in seeking solutions to challenges faced by the farming community. 4, realizes that historically antagonistic relations between the farmers, farm dwellers, and farm workers have contributed to the negative growth of the agricultural sector economy, and that in parts of the country, these difficult relations continue. 5, further acknowledges the work done by the Department of Employment and Labor and the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development in improving the living and working conditions in the farming communities, and B, various other state agencies and departments related to investigations and studies conducted on gross violation of human rights within the farming communities. 6, applauds the successful implementation of Progressive Sector Determination 13 that deal with the farming sector and provisions related to prescription of minimum wage for farm workers. 7, directs that the both Portfolio Committee of Employment and Labor, Committee on Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, as part of their annual schedule of work to jointly A, conduct comprehensive oversight work on the living conditions and working conditions of farm workers and farm dwellers and farmers. B, assess progress made by government commitments towards improved living and working conditions in the farming communities, including work done by different stakeholders in the agricultural sector. C, conduct public hearings with key stakeholders. D, make an impact assessment on legislation affecting farm workers and make recommendation for the legislative amendment. E, consult with the relevant select committees in the National Council of Provinces in carrying out the task at hand. F, exercise those powers with Rule 167 that may assist in the committees in carrying out its task. And 8, set the deadline by which the two committees are to report to Parliament by the 30th of November 2021. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other parties who, the Honorable Mazzoni from the DA, are you also rising to bring the amendment?
Yes, House Chair Barotto, the DA also rises to bring an amendment, which I believe the table has and it has been signed.
Yes, I've seen that, yes.
Honorable Barotto, if I may, I will deal with the amendment as my colleague is on the online platform and the connection isn't stable. So I read on behalf of Dr. Annelie Lottrit, who moves an amendment to omit all the words after that and to substitute the following. That the House notes that the agricultural sector is an important contributor to the economy and plays a crucial role in food security in the Republic. Further notes that the future of the sector is dependent on the well-being of everyone involved in the sector. 3, acknowledges that all farm workers should enjoy the respect and working conditions consistent with labor laws and regulations of the Republic. 4, recalls that many farmers and agricultural organizations have expressed their concern regarding the maltreatment of farm workers and their families and the non-compliance with the current labor laws and regulations, and that they continue to act decisively against any such instances of maltreatment and non-compliance. 5, realizes that farming communities, which include farmers, farm workers, and their families, play an integral role in the rural community and landscape of the Republic. 6, establishes an ad hoc committee in terms of Rule 253, and that committee is to A, conduct a comprehensive review of the conditions of farm workers across the Republic, including all work that has been done within and by agricultural organizations in the country. B, make an assessment of legislation affecting farm workers and make recommendations for legislative amendments to address any inconsistencies with the current labor regulations. C, conduct public hearings with all interested and affected parties. D, consist of 11 members as follows: African National Congress, 6, Democratic Alliance, 2, Economic Freedom Fighters, 1, and other parties, 2. E, exercise those powers in Rule 167 that may assist in the carrying out of its task. And finally, 7, sets the deadline by which the committee is to report as the 27th of May, 2021. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any other party that has did you receive any other request? No, only the 2 parties. Thank you very much. Start now, honorable members, starting with the last amendment that we made. Are there any objections?
Thank you, House Chairperson. The ANC objects and we call for division.
The division having been called, we allow the parties to bring the numbers together, consolidating, working with ICT, and the bells will be rung for 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
House Chair, before you ring the bells, can we just have clarity as to what we are now going to divide on? Are we dividing on the amendments?
Honorable member, we're going to divide on each amendment, but we start with, when we put the question, we start with the amendment that was made last. Hence, the ANC says division. Thank you. Okay. Honorable members, I was receiving our advice. Firstly, I have to unfortunately put the question on the table before the voting part. So we start with the last motion, the last amendment that was made. Are there any objections to the amendments as raised by Honorable Lotriet from the DA?
Yes.
Yes, I didn't see who that is.
The ANC is objecting to the amendments.
Thank you. You may sit. Do we have, I continue, do we have objections? Since there are objections, I now going to put the question. Those who say I may do so.
I for what?
Those who say
I for what?
uh, may, may I call those who say no to the okay, those who are not listening, we are still on the amendments as made by the DA from the Honorable Lotrie. Now, since there is an objection, I'm going to allow to put a question to say those who agree with the motion as said by the Honorable with the amendment as read by Honorable Mozzoni on behalf of Honorable Lutriet should say aye.
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 Thank you very much. Honorable members, I
No.
those against the motion as I've explained it. No, man, don't.
Go away. Go away.
Yes.
I didn't want to go here. The noes have it for this motion, which means the motion as read by Honorable Mazzoni will now fall. Thank you. We now go to the motion as read by Honorable Judith Chabalala on behalf of the Chief Whip of the majority party, the ANC. Are there any objections to the motion?
House Chair, no objection to the motion.
Yes, in light of the objection, I will now put a question. Those who agree with the motion as raised by the ANC, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The motion as read, the amendments as read and presented from the ANC, the amendments in the name of the Honorable Chief Whip of the majority party. Those who do not agree with the amendment.
House Chair, will you please note the DA's objection, please?
The DA's objection has been noted.
Chairperson,
yes.
please note the
Honorable,
objection of. Please note the objection of the EFF plus.
the objection of the EFF plus.
Order, House Chairperson. There's no EFF plus.
Chairperson. Chairperson.
Chairperson,
The objection of Al Jama.
The Al-Jama also have got an objection. With those objections that have been noted, then the motion, the amendment of the ANC in the name of the chief whip of the majority party has been agreed to. Thank you very much. Honorable.
Ngiyambona umuntu ufuna ungilwisana nama-comrades.
Now I'm going to put the motion as amended. We have agreed to the amendment of the ANC. Now I put the motion as amended. Those who agree with the motion as amended should say aye. Now, those who do not agree with the motion as amended, say no.
House Chair, on behalf of the DA, I will say no.
Thank you. So the ayes have the motion.
No.
Thank you very much, honorable members. The amendment as read by the Honorable Judith Chabalala on behalf of the chief whip of the majority party has been agreed to. Thank you very much. Honorable Frolic, please come in as the secretary read the first order of the day.
Decision of question on report of Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs on petition from the residents of the Tsilele town, Ward 23, Zanin, calling on the Assembly to ensure that the Zanin municipality abides by the laws, bylaws, and regulations, and that it implements the prescribed environmental and applicable zoning, as well as monitor and halt all illegal activities, submitted by Ms. D. van der Walt, MP.
Honorable members, are there any objections to the adoption of the report? Are there any objections? If there are no objections, the report is agreed to. The Secretary will read the second order.
Report of Portfolio Committee on Tourism, on Transformation Charter in tourism sector.
Honorable members, are there any objections to the adoption of the report?
House Chair Frolic, the DA objects to the adoption of the report, please.
There's an objection. I will put the question. Those in favor will say aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those against will say no.
No.
I think the ayes have it.
I'm unmuted.
I think the ayes have it. Are there any further objections? The report is thus agreed to. The Secretary will read the third order.
No question on report of Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs on petition relating to allegations of corruption and mismanagement at Naisna Local Municipality, Western Cape.
Honorable members, are there any objections to the adoption of the report? Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. The Secretary will read the fourth order.
Decision of question on report of Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Technology on oversight visit to Gauteng.
Are there any objections to the adoption of the report?
Chairperson,
Yes, Honourable Member.
please note the objection of the FF Plus.
There's objections. Are there any further objections? There's no further objections. The report is agreed to. We now come to motions without notice. Does any member of the ANC wish to give a motion without notice? The ANC?
Yes, Chair.
Please proceed.
Chairperson, thanks very much. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes that on the 3rd of November 2020, the United States of America held its national elections. Further notes the two United States presidential candidates competing to be elected were Mr. Joe Biden and President Donald Trump. Acknowledges that these were the most hotly contested elections ever in the history of the United States, and a polarizing one for USA citizens. Congratulates Mr. Joe Biden on his victory and wishes him well. Hopes that the USA will rejoin international treaties like the Paris Accord, and appeal to all USA citizens to accept the results and work towards unifying their country. On behalf of the African National Congress, I so move, House Chair. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. I now recognize the Democratic Alliance. Is there a member of the DA with a motion without notice?
House Chairperson, I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House, 1, notes that farmers in the Free State, Northern Cape and Northwest are still reeling from the impact of the devastating veld fires that destroyed more than 200,000 hectares of farmland on more than 300 farms a few weeks ago. 2, further notes the towns of Herzogbul and Boshoff quickly became the epicenter of the devastating fires after they were reportedly started by protesters during a service delivery protest in the Tokologo local municipality. 3, acknowledges that farmers and disaster management teams battled the raging fires for more than a week to bring it under control under difficult circumstances, with strong winds hampering firefighting efforts and fueling and spreading the fire. 4, recalls that the fires come after a prolonged period of drought in the area and that some farmers are also in the midst of an 8-year-long drought period. 5, recognizes that although some of the farming communities affected by the devastating fires have been overwhelmed by and are extremely appreciative of the support and donations they have received, they have requested potential donors to remember the farmers who are struggling with the prolonged drought and request that donations of feed be diverted to these farmers if they are closer for delivery. 6, extends its heartfelt thanks to every person who assisted in battling the raging fires, who donated much needed fodder to feed the animals and money to do urgent repairs to infrastructure, and who continue to support the farming communities in the aftermath of these devastating fires. I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member. If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The EFF?
Thank you very much, House Chair. I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice that the House notes the racist violence that erupted at the Brackenfell High School here in Cape Town on Monday, the 9th of November, in which members of the EFF were protesting peacefully, were attacked and assaulted by white people. Further notes that these EFF members went to protest peacefully outside the school premises after it was reported that the school had held a matric dance function exclusively for white people to the exclusion of many black people attending the school. Acknowledges that these white people who claim they were parents of children studying at Brackenfell High School attacked EFF members with sticks, fists, and even gunshots were fired. They even attacked and pushed around police when police tried to intervene. Further acknowledges that the reaction of South African police to violence perpetrated by white people is vastly different from the way they treat black people. The whites who committed this terrorist attack acts were largely allowed to do so by the police, while they would have reacted with brutality if they were dealing with black people. Condemns the racism prevalent at Brackenfell High School, which led to the exclusion of black peoples from the matric function. Further condemns the blatant racism of the white terrorists who terrorized, attacked, and even shot at peaceful protesters, and affirm that there is no place for racists anywhere in our country, and there will never be a no-go area for black people ever again in South Africa. I so move, House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. Are there any objections?
House Chairperson. House
The
Chair.
objection of Alliance.
Please note the objection of the FF Plus.
Honourable Members, there are objections. The motion will thus be converted to a notice of motion. The ANC.
House Chair, on behalf of the African National Congress, I would like to present this motion of appreciation to our healthcare frontline workers in the fight against COVID. That the African National Congress moves without notice the appreciation of all healthcare professionals and frontline workers in general for their efforts in helping the country through the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Understands that among those who have lost their lives are the healthcare workers and consummate professionals who cared for all who were ill and gave support and comfort to those in hospitals isolated from their families. Wants to salute those brave warriors who left their homes, families, and loved ones to report without fail for every day in clinics, hospitals, and other healthcare facilities. I want to appeal to all South Africans to adhere to the measures implemented to curb the spread of this virus. To commend the frontline workers and all South Africans for rallying together in this fight against the virus. And lastly, to thank our Honorable President, Baba Cyril Ramaphosa, the National Coronavirus Command Council, and the Cabinet for providing leadership during the difficult times. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The IFP. The IFP. The Freedom Front Plus. The Freedom Front Plus.
Kade be object and demand.
The ANC. Is there a motion without notice from the ANC?
Yes, Chairperson.
Proceed.
Oh, thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice. Sorry, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with sadness the passing of the South African Rugby Union first Black president, Silas Kanunu, at the age of 87 on Friday, 6th November 2020. Remembers that Kanunu, who was a lawyer by profession, specializing in human rights law, in 1988 to become the SARU's first Black leader. Further remembers that Kanunu also had position within the International Rugby Board, chairing its Games Regulation Committee and being its vice president for a brief period. Acknowledged that he is one of the most distinguished rugby administrators who helped uniting South African rugby and has gained the respect of the rugby world. Recalls that he ran his own law practice in Port Elizabeth and was also chair of the Law Society of South Africa, and conveys his deepest condolences to his family and friends. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ACDP. The UDM.
Thank you.
Please
Thank you,
proceed
House Chair. CDP moves without notice that the House congratulates Mr. Brad Binder, who became the first South African to win a Premier Class World Championship motorcycle race when he claimed victory in the Czech Motor Grand Prix on August 9, 2020. The win was also for the Red Bull KTM factory team. What makes this achievement even more remarkable is that Mr. Binder was a rookie and was competing in only his third Grand Prix of the sports Premier Class on the day. He had, however, showed great potential when he was world champion in 2016 in the Moto3 class. In a country desperate for some good news amid COVID-19, the power of sport again showed that it could bring hope to the nation, with social media sharing happy messages about Mr. Binder's achievement. As President Ramaphosa said at the time in congratulating Mr. Binder, coming as it did on Women's Day, which brings us together as a nation, Brad's victory in the Czech Grand Prix provides us with inspiration, hope, and pride, and lifts our spirits at a time we need this. The ACDP agrees and so moves. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The UDM.
Thank you, House Chair. I move without notice on behalf of the United Democratic Movement that the House notes that on 8th November 2020, the Jerusalem hitmaker Master King, featuring Nom Tebo, KG, won the 2020 MTV Awards for the Best African Act. Further notes that he was up against Burna Boy from Nigeria, Rima, Nigeria, Kabza De Small, and DJ Maporisa from South Africa, Shiba from Uganda, and Gez Makwete from Congo. No acknowledges that Jerusalem continues to make history globally, rising to higher places and increasing over 48,000 Spotify streams between October and November 2020, not only in its native country, South Africa, but also in Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Portugal, Romania, Belgium, Switzerland, and Spain. Further acknowledges that Master KG ended South Africa's 7-year-long streak of losing to Nigeria and have now won that. Congratulates Master KG for raising the South African flag high and wishes him and his team all the best for his endeavors. I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ATM. ATM, the Democratic Alliance.
House Chair, I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House, 1, notes that Rhenish Girls High School in Stellenbosch is the oldest girls' school in the Republic. 2, further notes that the school celebrated its 160th anniversary since being established in 1860 on the 1st of May 2020. Acknowledges that the school has done wonderful work in its 160 years in existence to educate girls from all strata and to empower women to take up their rightful places in South African society. Recalls that the school was one of the first schools in the Republic to embrace the post-apartheid era by opening its doors to girls from all racial backgrounds in 1991. Recognizes that the school consistently produces excellent matric pass rates and continues to be one of the top producing schools in the Western Cape. Congratulates the principal, Ms. Helmine Slubber, the management team, the educators, and all other staff, and the learners on the occasion of the school's 160th anniversary, and wish them well in the future. I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member. If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The EFF.
I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice that the House knows that the 6th of November marked 56 years since the apartheid singer, composer, trade unionist, and a soldier for the liberation of Black in this country, Vuyisile Mini, was executed by the apartheid government in 1964. Further knows that Vuyisile Mini was hanged together with Wilson Kayinga and Zinakile Mgaba after they were charged and convicted of acts of sabotage which they committed in pursuit of liberating Black people in this country and breaking the yoke of racism and exploitation that had bedeviled this country since the arrival of white people. Acknowledges that Vuyisile Mini was a super gifted singer and composer and had
Honorable members, it seems we've lost the members' connection. Is there a whip of the EFF on the platform who can complete that?
composed the popular liberation song Emnyama Weferwood and Dix composed another further acknowledges that
Honorable members, the member has a serious problem with the connection. Is there perhaps a whip of the EFF who can
Can I
read
start
that?
all over again, Chair?
Please read it, honorable member.
Thank you. I rise on behalf of the EFF to move motion without notice that the House notes that the 6th of November marked 56 years since the anti-apartheid singer, composer, trade unionist, and a soldier for the liberation of Black people in this country, Vuyisile Mini, was executed by the apartheid government in 1964. Further notes that Vuyisile Mini was hanged together with Wilson Makayinga and Zinakile Mgaba after they were charged and convicted on acts of sabotage, which they committed in pursuit of liberating Black people in this country and breaking the yoke of racism and exploitation that plagued this country since the arrival of white people. Acknowledge that Comrade Vuyisile Mini was a super gifted singer and a composer and had composed the popular liberation song Basopa Nansi Ndoda Emnyama Wefervude, and during the treason trial of 1956 composed another popular song Thatha umthwalo bhuti sigoduke balindile omama nobaba ekhaya. Further acknowledges that Vuyisile Mini and his comrades fought against racism in all its manifestations and were prepared to lay down their lives for it. As they took their last step into the gallows, they sang even harder because they were convinced that their death will not be in vain and the Black people will attain full liberation in South Africa. Accept that racism and oppression of Black people that Comrade Mini, Comrade Zinagile, and Comrade Mgaba died fighting is still prevalent in this country, and that Black people are still treated as slaves in their own land of their forefathers. We convey its appreciations for the sacrifices made by Comrade Mini, by Comrade Zinagile, and Comrade Mgaba to their families and recommit to fight against racism whenever it raised its ugly head. I so move, Chair.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections. Yes, honorable member.
The DA objects.
There's an objection. The motion will be converted to a notice of motion. The ANC.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House knows that the 24-year-old Chudufadzo Musina, who comes from Hamasia village in Limpopo, has been crowned Miss South Africa 2020 at the glittering pageant finale held at a close ceremony at the Table Bay Hotel in Cape Town on Saturday, 24th October 2020. Further news that Chudufadzo, who has a Bachelor of Social Sciences in Philosophy, Politics and Economics from the University of Pretoria, won a package of prizes worth over 3 million rand. Further acknowledges that the first runner-up for this year was medical doctor Tato Musetla from Krugersdorp in the Northwest, and while Natasha Joubert, a BCom graduate from Pretoria, took the third spot. We understand that the 3 women will go to represent the country at international pageants like Miss Universe, Miss World, and Miss Supranational. We congratulate Shurufazu Mosina as well as Tato Mosetle, Natasha Joubert on the outstanding performance and wishing them well for raising the country's flag at the international events. Ria ni fuluvetsa na itutamela umashoto ke a leboga modulasetulo I so move.
Thank you, honourable member. Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Good. The NFP.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. The National Freedom Party moved without notice that this House notes that the Hindu community in South Africa and globally will be celebrating Diwali Festival of Lights on Saturday, the 14th of November 2020, which commences today. Also notes that during the Diwali celebration in October 2019, attended by many members of the Hindu community and other nationalities, including the young and the very old, the celebration was disrupted by residents of the complex despite permission being granted to host the said celebration. Also note that the disruption turned violent with certain members of the white community hurling racial remarks, insulting members of the Hindu community, including the damaging of fireworks and other belongings. Further note that despite a complaint being lodged at Sunnyside Police Station, case number 875-10-2019, no arrests have been made, neither has the matter received appropriate attention. Wherefore, we call on this Honourable House to extend best wishes to the Hindu community, condemns the intolerance and abuse leveled against the Hindu community, calls on SAPS to expedite the investigation into the disruption in October 2019 and ensure those responsible face the full might of the law. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, honourable member. If there are no objections, I put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. The ANC. The ANC.
Yes, Chairperson. The ANC move without the motion without notice that the House notes with great shock the senseless murder of 8 people in a shooting occurred in NY 1778 in Gugulethu, Cape Town on Monday, the 2nd November 2020. Further notes that 7 people died on the scene and the 8th person, one of 2 people who were wounded in the shooting, died in hospital the following day. And understand that police are still investigating what led to the shooting. Recalls that the senseless killing in Gugulethu comes just more than a month after 6 people were shot dead inside C. Khayelitsha in what is believed to be a gang war over the control of extortion rackets. Calls on the police to leave no stone unturned when investigating the murder and urges anyone with information relating to the incident to report it at the local police station, and conveys condolences to the families of the deceased and wish the survivors a speedy recovery. I so move.
Thank you, honourable member. If there are no objections, I will put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. The AIC. Cope. The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House supports South African 2-time Olympic track champion Caster Semenya, who lost an appeal to Swiss Supreme Court against the World Athletics regulations, which restrict testosterone levels in female athletes. Notes that Semenya is currently not allowed to compete in any events between 400 meters and a mile without taking testosterone suppressing drugs. Recalls that in 2019, the Swiss-based Court of Arbitration for Sport ruled in favor of the restrictions placed on athletes in some female track events, acknowledges that Semenya has faced intense I'm sorry, the what do you call, knows that Semenya is current, acknowledge that Semenya has faced intense scrutiny in her sport for more than a decade, recognizes that the World Medical Association has supported Semenya and requested that doctors not implement the World Athletics regulations that are not based on medical need. Also recognizes that the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has also called for the regulations to be revoked and resolved to do everything in our power to fight this injustice and violation of human rights. I so move. This is ridiculous.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. The DA?
Chairperson, something, please.
Honorable
Chairperson?
Frolic,
yes,
Honorable is calling for you. I don't know what is the reason.
Why are you calling me, Member?
Albeit we were going to indicate that there was no motion without notice from ourselves, you just jumped. And I would appeal that next time you don't do that.
No,
because it is not a...
Honorable Member,
Okay.
do you have a motion without notice? Let's start there. If you do have one, I will allow you to read it.
All that I'm saying is the
I'm
way...
asking if you have a motion without notice, Honorable Member. If you have a motion without notice, I'll allow you to read it. No problem. Please proceed.
Honorable Frolic,
Yes,
may I
Honorable.
inform you that the COPE did not submit a motion without notice, as is the norm.
Oh, thank you,
Thank
Honorable.
you.
Thank you, Honorable Rotter. Honorable Madisha, you are completely out of order then. The PAC? Al-Jamaa?
Honorable House Chair.
Honorable, before he continues, I'm told that you did not do the decision on the last motion read. Thank you.
No, I think the DA was the next party before the Honorable Madisha interrupted proceedings, even though we didn't have a motion. The Democratic Alliance.
Thank you so much, House Chairperson Frolic. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that Mr. John Steenhuisen was duly elected to the position of the leader of the Democratic Alliance by a majority of the delegates that participated in the party's virtual Federal Congress this Sunday, 1st of November 2020. Further notes that Mr. Steenhuisen's career in public service began as a public representative for the party in 1999, when he was elected to serve as one of the youngest elected councillors in the then Durban City Council at the age of 22. Acknowledges that Mr. Steenhuisen was elected to the position of leader of the DA caucus in the KZN provincial legislature after representing Durban North for 10 years in 2009. Recalls that Mr. Steenhuisen became a member of parliament for the DA's National Assembly caucus in 2010, where he served on the Portfolio Committee of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Further recalls that Mr. Steenhuisen served as the chief whip of the official opposition in the National Assembly from May 2014 until October 2019. Recognizes that Mr. Steenhuisen is passionate about South Africa and the prosperity of her people, and remains optimistic about its future despite the large number of new and old challenges it faces. Congratulates Mr. Steenhuisen on his election to the position of leader of the Democratic Alliance, and consequently to the position of the leader of the official opposition in the National Assembly of the Republic of South Africa, and we wish him well in all his endeavors. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Member. If there are no objections, I put the motion. Are there any
Object.
objections?
Yes, there's
There
objection.
There are objections, and the motion will be converted to a notice of motion.
Innocent doesn't have matter.
Al-Jama. The Honorable Hendricks.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Al-Jama calls on Parliament to honor Dr. Anwar Nagia. Al-Jama moves without notice that the House notes that the revolutionary figure in our community, Dr. Anwar Nagia, has died on the 28th September 2020 after a month-long battle with COVID-19 following heart surgery. Acknowledges that Dr. Nagia was a prominent human rights activist, and his death will leave a huge void not only within the Muslim community, but throughout Cape Town, the rest of the country, and many parts of the world. Further recognizes him as a revolutionary figure in our community who continuously fought for justice since a young schoolboy. Parliament wishes to extend its heartfelt sympathies to his wife and family, friends, and comrades. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. If there are no objections, I put the motion. There's no objections. The motion is agreed to. The ANC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House congratulates Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi on being conferred the status of Senior Counsel by President Cyril Ramaphosa following a recommendation by the Johannesburg Bar in 2019. Notes that the Cala-born lawyer was born to a domestic worker mother who then became a teacher at a school for the disabled and later a nurse, as well as to a father who was a mine worker who later became a clerk at the magistrate court and was pursuing his legal studies when he died. Acknowledges that Advocate Ngcukaitobi holds the degrees of BProc, LLB from the University of Transkei, now known as Walter Sisulu University, a Master of Laws from Rhodes University, and another Master of Laws from London School of Economics and Political Science. Remembers that he has served at the Legal Aid South Africa and at the Legal Resources Center before he was appointed as a clerk to the Chief Justice Arthur Chaslerson. He later joined the Johannesburg Bar as an advocate. He is also a member of the African Bar Association, PABASA. Recalls that he is a published author of the book, The Land is Ours, South Africa's First Black Lawyers and the Birth of Constitutionalism. Further recalls that in the judgment of his peers, it was befitting that he be honored with the status of senior counsel because of his excellent work after only 8 years of joining the bar, something which is rare in the legal profession, and congratulates Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi SC on this befitting honor. I so move, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. If there are no objections, I move the motion. No objections, agreed to. That concludes motions without notice. The last item on the order paper is notices of motion. Does any member of the ANC wish to give a notice of motion? The ANC.
Thanks, House Chair. House Chair, I hereby move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates achieving transformation and development of the agricultural sector and the role that the Land Bank plays as one of South Africa's most important development finance institution. I so move. Thank you.
The DA.
House Chairperson.
Yes.
I hereby move on
Proceed.
behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the high level of child malnutrition in South Africa, and as a result, devastating stunting that continues to impair the mental and physical development of millions of children in this country. I so move.
Thank you. The EFF.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the EFF to give notice that in its next sitting, the House must debate the management crisis at the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, despite the appointment of an administrator who has, in fact, led the institution with an iron hand and led massive corruption and mismanagement at NSFAS. I so move.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the ANC that in the next sitting, the House debates delivering school infrastructure effectively and cost effectively to address backlogs, improve the quality of information used for planning and taking learner safely into account. I so move, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The IFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Egameni lombutho omkhulu wenkatha yenkululeko. Ngokuhlala kwendlu okulandelayo, the IFP will move that the House debates the urgent need for jobs and for South Africans to be prioritized before we import in an effort to aid the unemployment issue as well as our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Freedom Front Plus.
Thank you, House Chair. I rise on behalf of the FF Plus to give notice that at the next sitting of the House, I will move that this House debates the staggering unemployment rate in South Africa, whilst employers in all sectors, including small business owners, are being hampered by bureaucracy and red tape, as well as government's overall negative attitude towards the private sector and restrictive labour legislation. I so move. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, House Chair.
The Honourable Mutwang from the ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates assessing foster care progress, implementation, and progress in providing for all families whose children cannot live with their own parents. I so move, House Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. The ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. I will move at the next sitting of the House on behalf of the African Christian Democratic Party that the House debates the need and cost of spending on the country's large number of foreign missions, given the precarious state of the country's public finances, as well as recent revelations of wasteful expenditure.
The UDM. The UDM. ATM. The DA. The Democratic Alliance.
Chairperson, I hereby move that at its next sitting, this House debates the dangers of the global gag rule policy, which seeks to curtail abortion-related services for non-governmental organizations that have accepted funding from the government of the United States of America, and its impact that this will have on women's reproductive healthcare rights in South Africa. I so move.
The EFF. The EFF.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I rise on behalf of the EFF to give a notice that in its next sitting, the House must debate the forceful sterilization of HIV-positive pregnant women in South Africa who are either forced or coerced to sterilization in the public hospitals of this country, and the lack of action by the law enforcement agencies, as well as the Health Professional Council, to make health workers who subjected these women to this violence account. I so move.
The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hereby move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting, the House debates tourism as a vehicle to expedite transformation and inclusive tourism growth that nurtures participation of all South Africans in the mainstream economy. Thank you very much. I so move.
Thank you. Good. The NFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The National Freedom Party moves that at its next sitting, this House deliberates and resolves on the unconditional downgrading of the South African Embassy in Israel to a liaison office until Israel refrains from violating the human rights of the Palestinian people, recognizes the right of the Palestinian people to exist, and complies with all international agreements entered into. I so move.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I hereby move on behalf of ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates maintaining and sustaining two zone centers by integrating the approach of government to service delivery in order to achieve the objectives of the centers. I so move. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The AIC. The AIC. Cope. Is there a notice of motion from Cope? The ANC. The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move on behalf of ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates assessing foster care progress, implementation and progress in providing for all families whose children cannot live with their own parents. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The Democratic Alliance.
Honorable Chair, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move that at its next sitting, this House debates the failure of the national government to defend and promote the constitutional right of access to mother tongue education at public schools and universities. I so move.
Thank you. The PAC. Al-Jamaa. Al-Jamaa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Al-Jamaa moves that the House debates the motion that all students from grade R to grade R be promoted at the end of the year, and that it hereby so moves.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates performing oversight on South African missions abroad, thus allowing for monitoring the causes of irregular expenditure and non-compliance with supply management issues. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Members, that concludes the process of motion and business for the day.
Honorable colleague.
Yes, Honorable Member.
There is a point of order from the House, please.
Let's hear the point of order.
Honorable Chairperson, my apologies for taking this House back to the item of notices of motions without notice. I want, on behalf of the ANC, to state it in this House that a motion without notice that was read by Honorable Mazzoni, the DA Chief Whip, was erroneously objected to by one of our members, Comrade Judith Chabalala. So as the ANC, we want to withdraw that objection. We are in support of that motion. I so move. Thank you.
Yes, I understand that is the motion congratulating the new leader of the Democratic Alliance. We will go back and we will correct that objection, Honorable Member, and the motion is thus agreed to. Honorable Members, that
Judith, withdraw.
Honorable Member, really, your comment is not called for at this stage. That concludes notices of motion in the business for the day, and the House is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Judith.
Thank you, Chair.
has left the meeting. Unmute.
Congratulations, Judy.
Alt plus A. Button.
Thank you.
Alert.
Hey.
Starting narrator. Narrator
Look,
dialogue.
and you one
Okay.
thing.
Button. Alt plus O.